You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Business Wealth Impact. Today we have Tissa Richards, who is an author, coach, and speaker, and she helps leaders and teams think about resilience differently and how it gives them a competitive edge and a lot of other things. Welcome, Tissa.
Hello, so good to be here.
Fantastic to have you here. I'm super excited to have you. So I'd love to hear you start, riffing on what's different about how you see this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. As I've been a CEO and a founder, and as I work with so many leaders now, I was just thinking about the way we think about resilience, which is the definition, right? You go through something hard, you bounce back to business as usual, or back to life, regular life. And it just didn't feel like it was setting us up for what the world needs or what the world looks like now, because it means you have to go through something big and bad. And our constant now is disruption and uncertainty. And I felt like we needed to flip our definition a little bit. That's to me like a reactive mode of resilience. What we need now, I think, is a muscle memory for intentional resilience. You have to be always ready. You have to be looking for opportunity and challenge. And so I felt like we needed to get away from this kind of grind through it, bounce back model into an always intentional muscle memory where you are always unshakable, you are always ready. So I wanted to think about it as an intentional resilience instead.
Okay, I love that because it does seem hard and we're at so much hardship and life can be hard. And I think that there is a balance between everything's so easy and pretending things aren't hard, but also the mindset of the ready for hardship. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, someone said, I do a lot of keynotes around this. I have a book that's coming out on this. And somebody said to me, it's interesting. When you think about hard stuff, it's like it happens to you. So you almost have this victim mentality about it if you're grinding through or you're just developing grit. But the way I want to shift resilience is that nothing happens to you. Everything happens through you. So you are in control. You have agency, how you want to grow through it, how you want to be adaptable, how you want to innovate if you're looking at this from a work perspective versus just a life perspective. So it's like shifting from to you to through you. And suddenly it's so empowering.
Okay, how do people do this? Where's the start of this
Yeah.
new way of looking at it?
Yeah, I think there's two things that I just made four, but it's two. The first to me is to know that we're already resilient, right? I mean, if you're alive, you go through things. So you're not actually building anything from scratch. You're just shifting your mindset a little bit to thinking, I don't have to react to things. I can proactively build this intentional resilience mindset through what I like to think of as these micro moments. It's just building a muscle. And you build a muscle by making it stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's the first. And the second is my favorite saying, which is you start by starting. You don't have to shift everything in your life in a massive way. You just start in little ways, these micro moments, either as a leader or a team or in your personal life. And you start to just look at it in this different way and build this muscle. And before you know it, you are looking for opportunities instead of seeing challenges. So
Okay,
it just becomes a mindset.
I love that. That's profound. Looking for opportunities instead of seeing challenges, did you say?
I did.
Okay,
I
so
did.
what you're saying, this is fascinating, is that people just see challenge, right? Generally. Oh, that's a challenge. You're saying actually you're being really like nice about it because people actually see it as problems, right? But if we're being
Yeah.
like even better about it, like and being more like progressive, let's just say, challenges. So they see a challenge, a challenge, a challenge. And you're saying we're going to look at it through a different lens, where it's not a
Yes.
challenge. We're actually
Yeah.
seeking an opportunity. Is that what you said?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, let me just give you an example. And this is like a very hard ROI on this shift, right? think about innovation. So it's so common for innovation to be reactive, right?
Mm,
Something happens, external negative pressure, the market shifts, your competitor does something, the regulators say you've got to do something. Now you innovate.
mm,
With the exception of like really big companies with huge innovation labs and big budgets,
mhm,
we tend to innovate out of a negative external pressure.
mhm,
But when you even shift this model, you think, okay, I am going to think about what's possible. How can I innovate proactively? Can I tell you a really cool story about this? There's a company that makes ice packs. We all get ice packs. Their name is Pelton Shepherd. I get ice packs every 3 weeks for a medical condition I've had for my whole life. So that is a lot of ice packs over my life, and I hate throwing them out. But about a year ago, the ice packs had writing on them that said, once this melts, just dilute it and it's plant food.
oh,
So
wow.
now, yeah. And so I called the CEO and I said, this is very cool. Why did you do this? And he said, we didn't have to do this,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
There's no negative pressure on us, but our values as a company are do the right thing for consumers, do the right thing for the planet. So we sort of just intentionally innovated something. Some of our ice packs are totally biodegradable. Some of them are drain safe. You can just drain them. We just decided to innovate.
mm,
And to me, that is a shift towards intentional resilience because you are looking for an opportunity when there's not even a challenge yet.
mm.
It's
Okay.
really cool.
It is cool. And it probably didn't
Yeah.
cost him anything except for the printing process on it, changing the
Yeah.
words. Okay. So let's look about, we were talking, and this fascinates me because I'm all about grit and resilience. Okay. And I'm not about killing yourself. I'm about finding, and I'm not also about ease and flow. Like, I don't believe you can truly create great things if you just want to be in ease and flow all the time. I just don't believe that. I've never, ever met any successful person that didn't hustle at some point and just said, "Oh, I just, meditate all day and things just come to me." I don't believe that, and I don't believe the people that tell me that they just do that. I just don't believe it. Okay? At all. I know you don't believe that either. Okay. So, however, having grit does sound like really like gritty. I mean, I believe it's just a mindset of, "Oh, I perceived that as hard, but now I don't even perceive it as hard. So I don't need to develop grit because it's just life as usual. I'm just not perceiving it as so hard." So that's my point of view. What's your point of view on the difference between grit and resilience?
Yeah, and this is really important because and I know there, I know that the book Grit was really, really important. And it's not this is not a way of saying everything's good, like being Pollyanna,
Mm,
right? Because things are still hard. But it's also being able to find the difference between failure and defeat, for example. When you fail, you need to understand very quickly that it's not defeat because if it is, you haven't learned anything from it. So it's being able to develop a culture as a leader for yourself that very rapidly you say, okay, what did we learn? I always say, right, as a CEO and a tech founder, what do you learn from success? I think you learn two things. You learn how to manage your money and you outsource that. You should learn how to manage your ego, and most successful people don't really do that. So you learn nothing from from success.
mm,
You learn everything from failure
mm,
unless you conflate it with defeat.
mm,
And so it's a way, to your point, of just reframing things in a very quick, you flip the switch really quickly.
mhm,
You are teaching people that failure is so normal. Without failure, you get nowhere.
mm.
But I think there's a bit of a negative thing for me with grit because it just means you grind, 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 grind.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And we don't need to live in hard.
No,
Life is hard enough.
true. But, it's interesting, as I said, because some people are not gritty. They're complainers. They don't want to do anything. So that's definitely not gritty, right?
Yeah.
However, then there's this, as I said, and I agree with you, there's this thing of we just have natural grit and it's not a hard thing. It's just, I don't give up. And it just, so it is. I do believe there is some room for that. And I think it's how we think of things like, oh, that is, because some people say to me, I'm doing this and this is so hard. And I'm thinking, no, it's not. It's hard because you have made that so hard in your mind. It's so hard to jump over that hurdle because you've made it hard when actually for me, the hurdle is 1 inch high. So for me, I'm just going to walk over the hurdle. I'm going to have the grit to walk, and for you, it's like, oh my. And I think it really is how we build things up. When you're going to do something and it's like, you really don't want to do it, then you do it and you think, oh, that wasn't actually very hard, was it? I just didn't want to do it. I think it's more our emotions attached to how we feel about doing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the book, I talk about sort of this flywheel of things that help you build intentional resilience. Things like having clarity on your goals and your priorities, being a good communicator. And I think maybe it's a shift for me from grit to one of the elements of the flywheel, which is conviction.
Mm.
Because you need to have conviction on what you want to do, why, how, when. That's, to me, that's about cadence. That's one of the things on the flywheel. So I think it's, again, just a reframing from that grit to the conviction that I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it this way. Here's why. So a lot of it's based on your values, your compass, because you're right. You can't expect to just sit back and do nothing and be successful. But if you're always just grinding, you will burn out. You can't be there for your team or your family or the people in your life. So it's finding a balance. At the very end of the book, I talk about anchored energy, which is what I think this sort of shift towards intentional resilience gives you. You're anchored in what's important, your values. You have this fuel to do anything because you know what you want to do. You have energy because you're not grinding it out.
Now, the book, mention the name of the book for everybody, because I didn't actually mention
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's called Rethinking Resilience, Fueling Your Competitive Advantage.
Wonderful. So check that out, folks. Um,
Yeah.
all right. Now, another thing you mentioned, one of my favorite topics, and that's ego. There is a
Yeah.
wonderful, very simple book written years ago called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Halliday. Do you know that?
I don't actually.
Super simple book. It takes like half an hour to read, I think. I think I read it when I was in Barnes and Noble while I was watching my children. I was just read through it because I used to spend my life at Barnes and Noble when my kids were napping in their strollers. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because as a coach, which I am, I have realized how big a failure bump that is for people. And you say it's okay to fail, I get it, but I mean complete failure as in complete failure to grow, or not complete. It's an ongoing failure bump, I call it. So it's like you're just going to keep failing somewhat. You're not failing. Some of them are doing very well. They don't have the ability to suppress their ego enough or control it to say, hey, you know what? We could do even better. And maybe we could do with some help. Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
where does, over and over again, the more I speak with people, you see the people that are good at the ego thing, and they're like, yeah, I just want to make this work. Or you can see there's something about, oh, well, we're so good at what we can't be told anything. And I'm just thinking, wow, there's money on the table with those people. Where does the ego fit in with the whole grit resilience piece?
Yeah, I think this is also about clarity and curiosity because if you have an ego that has no permeability, then you're not curious and you're never learning, right? So, curiosity is another element on what I call the intentional resilience flywheel because if you have stopped learning, you are not going to grow.
Mm,
And none of us can ever stop growing.
mhm.
It's interesting because a lot of the coaching work that I do is around the sort of imposter syndrome that people have. And so I actually say to people, like, don't. I had somebody say to me just the other day, oh gosh, I don't think I was humble enough in that meeting. And I think I know I love the word swagger because I think having a little bit of swagger is important, but not if you're like an arrogant asshole about it, right?
Exactly.
So
Yes.
it's finding the balance of when and how, and as long as there's substance behind your confidence, and a conviction behind it. But you have to be curious. If you're not, you're stagnating.
100%. To me, that's one of my core values is just constant curiosity. That's why I started this show, actually. I just thought I want to
Yeah.
get a bunch of smart people and see what they have to say. I have learned so much from my guests on this podcast, truly. It has been an absolute education because it's a bunch of experts on stuff I'm not an expert at. So it's just been this it's been amazing. I mean, incredible,
Yeah.
really. And every time I have a conversation, I learn something and it opens my mind, explodes me. So I love it. And I'm loving this conversation. Okay. So, and I love that. I know we weren't going to really talk about the ego, but it's so important. It really is
It,
to
it
the
is.
swagger. I love the swagger. I have swagger. Definitely. Okay. But you know what I am? I'm very self-effacing. I'm disarming because, I'll say that and I'll say, well, and I'll sort of like, say something and they'll realize that I actually don't think I'm so amazing. I think I've done some good things and I'm proud of them. I certainly don't know everything, but I also know when people are losing, they're losing because there's this wall. There's an invisible wall around them and greater knowledge. And knowledge is really what pushes us forward, not knowledge alone, because it's not just about getting about a bunch of information and not activating on it, right? But knowledge, insight, help, just opening your minds. So I love that you have an opinion on that. Okay, so what are some things that people can do right now to start this intentional resilience that you call it?
Oh, I love this question. It's really simple. It's a three-part framework that I have, and it's so easy. It's the three R's, right? So I think the first one is what I call reflect. Just stop, pause, and ask yourself, what's important to me? And this is your values, right? I mean, I was just looking, I don't have it on my desk, but just write it down on a post-it note. So what are my values? What are my priorities? What are the things that I'm going to use to reflect on? Because that's how you're going to make your decisions. It's how you're going to navigate your life. So you reflect.
Mm,
And that takes you to the second part of this, which is repeat. Because when you know what you can reflect on, you know how you're going to make decisions, you need to repeat them. That's what builds the muscle memory of intentional resilience. And you do this in these little micro moments, right? Just little. You might repeat, okay, I know that one of my values that I reflected on is transparency or it's integrity, whatever it is. Repeat that through your professional life and your personal life. And it doesn't have to be huge things. It's little tiny things. You
like
might
for instance, always doing what you say you're going to do. One thing,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. Or just start a meeting by start a meeting with transparency. Okay, here is the purpose of this meeting. Here's what I do or don't know. It's little. Then the last piece, so we have reflect, repeat. The last one is replace. So you're replacing the big macro thing is you're replacing that reactive resilience model with intentional resilience. But you're doing it by replacing these old behaviors and mindsets that don't suit you.
Mm,
So you might replace your tendency to like viscerally react instead of a calm response.
mm,
Or you might replace your tendency to avoid a hard conversation with I'm just going to pick up the phone and just make that phone call.
mm.
Or you might have a tendency to do the easiest things on your to-do list instead of the hardest ones first,
That is a big one. I've been coaching people
right?
on that for years to swallow the frog first, because if you keep going around and around, you don't get to
Yeah.
the guts of it in the center of your to-do list, right? You don't
Yes,
create
and
real
before
change.
you know it, you have created real change through this muscle memory
Mm,
and you have moved the ball forward and you realize, wow, I feel more calm, I feel more anchored, I feel more intentionally resilient. I feel like I can handle anything that comes my way.
mm.
So it's so simple and it's easy to remember. Reflect, repeat, replace.
Mm, fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
so people do this and then they're slowly making changes. And these
Mhm.
changes aren't just changes in their lives, it actually is changes for resilience,
Yeah.
because this
Yeah.
will make people more resilient because they've trained themselves to do something new.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get calls all the time from companies that have had, I mean, we've all had, it's just been nonstop change, right?
Mm.
If I hear one more time, we're in unprecedented times, I might vomit, right? Because this is
No.
this is our norm,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
like, teams that are like, we can't keep it's constant.
Mm,
It's teams that are dealing with this or whole organizations or I had I have people who will call after I do a keynote and say, "No, I was out for a walk with a friend and we were talking about this and we decided to just do this, like, just together."
mm,
So, it's all the ecosystems of your life
yeah.
because you're not just one person in one place.
Mhm.
You have to think about resilience, like, in all the places that you show up and for all the people you
Right.
get to show up for.
For everything in our lives. See, it does take some hardship because most people don't want to even be that conscious to be always changing something. But for people that are into growth and personal development, they'll love this. Now, tell me, how did you get into all this? What was your trajectory?
Yeah, it's so I'm a repeat software founder and CEO, and a few years ago, I had to make the really hard decision to shut down my company.
Mm,
And I did that based on the clarity I had that to stay aligned with my values, I had to do it. And I lost everything.
wow.
I lost not just my life savings, 10 years without a salary. I lost the life savings of a lot of people that I love, family members, friends. And you're in a place, this is where, that's what we talked about a few minutes ago of don't conflate failure with defeat.
Mm,
Literally think, is this the end? And then you realize nothing's the end, right?
wow. That is
Yeah.
amazing. So you lost, so you had to deal with a lot of fallout of losing
Yep.
other people's money. And so you had to end it because it wasn't ethical anymore or something?
Yeah. We were asked to make a decision that really was not aligned with the values of the company. And so
Ah,
despite the costs, I sort of said, I know what's right
yes.
despite the cost. And it's not a hard choice, but you know what's coming.
Yeah.
And it informs so much of my work. I feel like it turns pressure into power.
Mm,
When you know, when you reflect, you repeat, you replace, you sort of say, I'm not going to I'm not going to let anything define this is not failure. But what's really interesting is that was this aha moment for me because I thought this is not bouncing back.
mm,
This is moving forward. Like nothing happened to me.
mm.
So much growth and choice happened through me. And I thought, everyone kept saying, oh, you're going to bounce back. And I thought, no, I'm going to grow back.
You're gonna recreate something new. You're not just a bounce
Yes.
back, like a reverberation of what was, right? Wow, but that must
Right.
have been quite hard to get past the relationship problems of losing everybody's money. And
Yeah.
did you lose friends and family? Were they mad at you? No, they agreed with your
Yeah.
decision. Did you kind of
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'll pay you back sometime," or it was just, "Sorry, we're just lost"?
There's relationships that haven't been rebuilt
Mm,
and it's really hard.
yeah.
And then there's people who understood and um it's just it's a devastating experience. But I think any founder, any CEO will understand that when you're a leader, you have to make really hard
Yes.
decisions. And I don't have any regrets
Mm,
because I know I made the right decision.
yes.
But yeah, it's a hard, hard journey. But that's when I realized, like, we're not rubber balls. We can't just bounce back.
Mm,
So I thought we have to rethink the way that we tell people
mhm,
about resilience because how many people say to their teams, just, I know this is hard, just be resilient.
mm.
That's not really that helpful. That's not a winning strategy.
No, it's not. It's like, how do we do this? How do we incrementally make changes so that we can sustain that? Wow, so you've been through a lot and then you learned a lot from this, and that's what got you into this line of work. Oh, that's
Absolutely. And
beautiful.
it was interesting. Jeanne, a woman came to me after a keynote once and she said, I feel like I'm failing at resilience because I'm
Mm,
not bouncing back. And I thought, oh,
mm.
we are really not serving people if people feel like they're failing at this.
Right. But people do feel they're failing at so much, and it's heartbreaking because, if they could see what I see, maybe they're not where they wish to be. And I mean, I was not where I wished to be for years. I did have to recreate, and it took years. And, by the grace of God, I figured something out. And then it was like, whoa, this is the thing. And I go from, and I'm always building something new because I have to, because or I'll get bored. But
Yeah.
I keep what's working. And then I say, hey, what else? And I kind of figure stuff out. But it's kind of sad because people used to say to me, "But you're doing such a good job. You're a good mom." And I'm thinking, "Okay, but I'm in deep debt. And this is really not the way, and I've got to fix something." And they say, "But they saw me that I wasn't a failure. They could see
Yeah.
that it wasn't where I wanted to be. They could see I was also writing everything off like this is just a failure, right? And they could see, and I could sorta, I wasn't negative, and I thought, I see what you're saying. I'm not dumb. And there's this whole part of me that is completely undeveloped. And I think that part of people, of their soul, walking around half half succeeding in certain things and not, that is killing people. That lack of fulfilled potential is like a disease. I see that as just, it was so hard for me. And my heart goes out to people where you see they're feeling that, and that's not going to change. That needs to be fixed, that people can live wholly, really feel like their whole potential, maybe not every last ounce, but enough of it, that they cannot, lead lives of quiet desperation. Because that's,
100%. And I feel like that's why I talk in my keynotes and in the book about this idea of like we need to feel anchored again.
mm,
We need to feel we need to feel re-energized because people don't feel whole
yeah,
and they feel like they're failing and it's really a tragedy. And
right.
I think that's why I felt like we keep hearing about resilience, but we're not doing it right or it's not
Mm,
serving us anymore.
mm.
And so if we can think about it differently, maybe people won't feel like failures.
Also, there's a personality thing. A-type personalities do all this way
Yeah.
better than other people. That's just a fact. In fact, certain sales teams will only hire A-types. They do tests on them. They've got to be extroverts, A-types, because they will succeed in certain roles and they will not hire somebody who's an introvert. And I'm thinking some introverts are actually pretty good salespeople, but for that culture. And we all know that, it generally is probably, I'd say it's an opinion. I'd say it's probably easier, generally, not all, for introverted people that are A types to activate on information or do this or like Tony Robbins. Not everybody can do the Tony Robbins, like motivational stuff. And I feel like there is a personality thing, and I'm very glad that there's more catering or tailoring, let's just say, for introverted types now than there used to be, because it used to just be if you're not that personality type, you probably can't do this anyway. So what's your insight on that? Because I'm sure you've had some uh, you know thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I was a CEO of a tech company, we used to do a read.me document. And it came from the fact that, before everything was online, my engineers would get so excited by getting these big, thick, they were called read.me's of all of our hardware in the lab. And they got so excited that they could go read everything about a piece of technology. And I thought, well, what if we all had a read.me?
Mm,
Literally every person. And it was as detailed as it could be about how we each learned and got information and gave information and our preferences and our what anchored us from a values perspective, all the things. And I just said it as a joke one day. And I said, you guys love your read.me's so much. What if we all had a read.me? And everybody was so excited because they thought, I would love to know all the things. And so we started doing it as an exercise.
mm.
And everybody had a read.me. And it's one of my most popular workshops now because some people are extroverted. They will give you their read.me even if you don't want it.
Exactly. Please stop it. You know what? And
Yeah.
also with AI, that's so easy to do a read.me. Just feed all this
Yes.
information about you and it's spitting it out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a nice way. And so we'll have it live on Slack or Teams. So
Mm,
if you could I can just click on your profile picture and go, oh, she doesn't want me just to reach out and ask. She wants me to give her the information first and then
mm,
we can talk. Or she doesn't care. Or
mm,
all the things where now doesn't matter if you're introverted, extroverted, ambiverted, all the
mm,
things. I can kind of equalize across personality types and communication types and get to know people really quickly.
mm,
It's one of the most popular workshops because it normalizes a lot of things and I can understand how best to connect with you
mm.
across a team, across
Right.
cross-functional teams.
Yeah.
And it started out kind of as a joke. Oh, I should do a
I love it.
read.me of you.
We
Yeah.
should do that for our
Yeah.
clients. You're making me really think about things now. The other
Yeah.
thing is good because there's so much social contagion going on that makes people feel they're not normal. And then they jump on this I'm not normal thing and it becomes a thing. And it really is social contagion. I think there's so much that's creating this feeling that we aren't normal. I don't think it's in some ways helped people because it's created new problems that people are convinced they have that I don't think they have. That's my point of view. And actually, a psychologist told me that. She said, "Yeah, it's studied." Well, listen, this has been fabulous. So tell me,
So fun.
yeah, Tissa, tell me, what's
Yeah.
one mindset or philosophy you want to leave everybody with?
I want to leave people with the knowledge that when you know exactly what you stand for, that's your values, that's just sort of your inner compass. you suddenly give yourself so much power. You know what you're going to say yes to, what you're going to say no to, and why. And that it turns that pressure into power. It gives you so much more mental clarity. And I think it takes a lot of, just takes a lot of the room out of making hard decisions, high stakes things. It just lowers the pressure for you. So take that little bit of time to do that reflection. And when you have big decisions to make or how to communicate them, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I love that. It is because is this my compass? No, it's not. Does this fit in with that? No, it's not. Instead of, gee, is this a good decision? I love that. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for being on the show. Everybody, I hope you loved this. There's going to be a
Yeah.
special gift in the show
Yeah.
notes, so take a look. And if you like this, please write a 5-star review wherever you heard this, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever we are. We're all over the place. We'll see you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of 7-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.